Howdy folks, my name is Lance Elliott and welcome to 7 tips I wish I had known about Slasher's Keep before I started playing. Slasher's Keep is a very difficult dungeon crawling indie roguelike game. As such, you're going to need about just any tip you can get your hands on in order to get an edge in this game. So here are 7 big things that the game doesn't really explain, and I think are very good things to know if you're just starting to play the game. They may even come in handy if you've been playing the game for some time, because some things slip through the cracks. So let's get started. Tip number 1. The field of view is actually incredibly important in this game. There's a parry function in the game, which requires you to hold right-click in the direction of where the enemy is swinging from, and that's often from the far left and far right of the screen. With the normal camera field of view, I can't remember exactly where it's set, maybe 70, it actually is very hard to block these attacks. But if you zoom it out to 85, at least for me, that's the sweet spot. You're much more able to block those attacks. It's even easier if you crank it up higher, but also if you crank it up higher and notice the fisheye effect gets pretty intense. And also, while I'm at it, I usually turn off head bobbing in any game that allows me to do it, just because it can be kind of distracting. Now here's the free bonus tip for all you new players. When you first start the game, you'll find yourself in this cell. And obviously, it seems like the game wants you to try to get these keys, because they're just through this crack in the wall. Surely you can reach them. You'll start pressing every button on your keyboard. You'll press F. You'll find out you have the sack. You'll look around. You'll see there's something in the bucket. You really hope that that's a piece of bread and not something else. But you just can't find a way out. What do you do? For tip number 2, when you're starting out, you'll find rooms that are just incredibly overwhelming. There'll be several enemies in there. These are often challenge rooms. But what you'll also see is that there's spikes in these rooms. In this case, we have a little spike pillar here. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, and they'll either be by numbers or just how much HP the enemies have, the best thing to do is to knock them into the spikes. Now, it is in the tutorial that you can do it. But one thing they don't tell you is one of the best ways to just push them towards it is just to walk into them. You don't take damage on just touching most enemies. So we can push him towards it, and then once we're close enough to do it, we can smack him with the sack and knock him into it. You smack him with the sack by pressing F. But this will help you power through rooms much more quickly than you normally could. Of course, we're getting sniped at by this archer as well. We'll deal with him momentarily. So there you go, the miracle of spikes. This also works if you find fires on the floor or holes in the floor. You can knock them into those, and that'll also either do lots of damage or just kill them outright. Okay, tip number 3. These naked mole rats are both very tanky, but they have 2 types of attacks they do. One is that attack, which we'll talk about in a moment. I would like to see the other attack. Okay, he's probably not going to show us the other one. There we go. You can block that attack. When he attacks with both arms, you can block that. But you can't block that one. Most people call that the haymaker. Best thing to do with that is to knock him away with your sack while he's trying to do it. Of course, you have a cooldown on your sack, so you can't just spam it. As with tip number 2, I would recommend that you try to knock them into some kind of spikes, because these guys have even more HP than the zombies do. For tip number 4, this is something that took me a very long time to find out, you can press the plus sign on your numpad to increase the size of the... You'll find that this little tiny map is incredibly hard to see, and it's very confusing because it's only in black and white and with little spots of color. Making it bigger helps a great deal. I still wish it was transparent in the middle of the screen, but this is the best we've got. So when you first level up, you'll gain a random skill. The game doesn't explain that very well. You gain a random skill, and the way you look at that is you open tab, and then you click down here. We started with Backstabber. You just start with 1 perk automatically, and it's like a racial perk depending on the race you picked. In this case, we got a 25% bonus to doing sneak attack damage from behind. And the random thing it gave us to start with is Bomber Person, which increases grenade splash radius by 5.8. We obviously did not get to pick our point, which is kind of annoying. However, every even level, you'll actually gain a point that you can spend on a specific ability. And we'll talk more about that in another tip. That brings us straight into tip number 6. Every stat is important. You'll see I have this sword here. It requires 4 intelligence and 5 dexterity. You're probably confused. You're like, well, that looks like a broadsword. Why does it require intelligence dexterity? It's just completely random. So what that means is every stat in this game is pretty much evenly useful. So we're going to want to level them all up. I don't even think we have enough points. Get to 5 dexterity. Ooh, actually, I can. No, I can't. Maybe we'll find a ring that'll give us a little bit more intelligence. HP increases melee damage and HP. Dexterity increases overall crit chance and armor effectiveness. Intelligence increases crit bonus damage, range damage, and influence the prices at the vendor, and also increases XP gain. So you can see they kind of all have benefits no matter what kind of build you're trying to do. It's time for a bonus tip, since I just happened to stumble upon this altar. So these altars will tell you place an item on the altar and await judgment. If you're wondering how to place an item, you have to drop it out of your inventory. The way you do that is just click and drag it out of your inventory. What you'll find, though, is if you put a normal item on there, it hurts you. What you need to do is you got to put a magic item on there. I'm going to give it this green longsword. And voila, it gives us a healing potion. And I think if you put a blue item on there, it'll give you an even better potion. But there's a specific item you can find, and it's dropped by slimes when you kill slimes. And it looks like a giant potion, and it's called, like, incandescent slime goo or something. But if you drop that on there, it'll drop a blue level piece of equipment for your character. And so we're to the final tip of the video, number 7, is once you gain level 2, and every other even level, you'll gain an actual skill point that you can spend yourself. And you can spend it on any ability you have other than your racial starting ability. But what's important to know is that you can actually learn any ability that is in your equipment. For instance, our warrior's boots are giving us this melee lifesteal 0.4%. If we take these off and go back to our menu, it's actually gone. So one important thing to know is if you have abilities that you don't really like available to you, and I would say lifesteal could even be one because it's only 0.4%, which is hardly anything. Most of the attacks on like the first few floors even, you'll notice that you're getting like 0.0 health back every attack. It's kind of useless. What we might prefer to do is wait until we find some item that has like fire damage is a really good one. And there's also riposte, which makes it so after you block an attack, you can do more damage on your following attack. So what you might want to do is just hold on to your point until you find equipment that has abilities you want. And the game does get extremely hard, especially on floor 5. Floor 5 makes basically the boss on the previous floor look like a pushover with just generic enemies. So you want every advantage you can get your hands on. But that will do it for our tips video here. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, remember to hit the like button. Keep the conversation going in the comments and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, I hope you have a good day.